you mentioned voluntary payments, and it used to be people believed that if they were giving the ATO something and they were making small contributions or voluntary payments, that they would be protected. I had a client about a month ago. They came through obviously our inquiry line, and I ended up speaking to them, and they said, no, we're on a payment plan. And when we did our review, they were paying $1,000 a week, which is not an insubstantial amount, but they weren't actually in a payment plan. So even though they were paying their $1,000 a week, because they weren't in a payment plan, they'd been reported to a credit reporting agency. And they didn't understand why they'd got this further action when they were making all of these payments. So what we were able to do with them was get them back into a payment plan, which was actually less than the $1,000 a week that they were paying, and voluntary amount. The credit reporting got removed within about a week of that payment plan, the first payment being made. So then they've got creditors, they're able to borrow money again, they're able to get on with their business, they're paying less, but they're protected. So I think they'd sort of had that misunderstanding, but they weren't protected before, even though they were paying a substantial amount to the ATO.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant, and that's such a good outcome. It's funny. I had get one last about 2 weeks ago now, and they had about just under $800,000 in debt. It's a smash repair company, and they excuse the pun, but had been smashed by COVID, and they'd had a long-term payment plan and got themselves back on track, and they were trading profitably, but unfortunately, with a change within their bank and needing to verify an account, a payment got missed, and they weren't aware of it. And then the ATO cancelled all their payment plans. When their accountant went back to put the payment plans back in place, they now had an income tax return that was out of date. And in fact, they'd found another old one that was also out of date. And so the ATO refused to do anything. They'd had a garnishee notice in the past, and so were paranoid about that and really worried about recovery action. And so the accountant obviously knew us and rang and sort of said, look, this is kind of a bit above my pay grade. Is there something you can do to deal with this? And so we were able to engage with the ATO, agree a time frame to get everything up to date. But again, I had to sort of emphasize to them the only way to be protected is to get this done quickly. So we had to get them and move very, very, very quickly to get the lodgements done and the payment plan done. And we did it within sort of, a couple of weeks. And the ATO were comfortable with that. But again, it's that anxiety that gets created if you have that debt because you don't have that protection unless you actually have that arrangement in place.
And there's huge anxiety. It doesn't matter on the level of debt. There's another client that we're in the process of helping with 180,000, and they have had a warning letter from the ATO. They did get a warning letter, but they're very, very concerned about the expiry of that. And I think it is really important to know with the collection activities of the ATO, there is no guaranteed protection when you've got an outstanding debt, even if you're talking to them, even if you're making the voluntary payments, until we can get them into a payment plan. And people are so stressed in that period. We see it all the time with the calls and the emails, but the answer is a payment plan. And there is nothing that can be done in that period. So it's a matter of, we talk about eating the frog, and facing it head on and not burying your head in the sand, because there's nothing else that can be done in that period if you can't pay the debt in full, which does put a lot of people between a rock and a hard place. But then when we get them to the other side, which it can only be a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, so moving quickly is the answer for those people.